Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Seana Coughlin. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, Father Sky, Mother Earth, and Me. Available for purchase through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But guys, listen, even though the book isn't available for purchase through her site, do yourself a favor. Okay, if you want to find out more information on Seana and you really want to get everything that she has to offer, you got to go here, okay? ConsciousGrief.com is her personal site, and it has so much to offer you. So make sure you're checking it out constantly for everything that she can offer. And I will say, Seana was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. Author Reputation Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, well, do yourself a favor and contact Author Reputation Press. And you can find out more information on them at authorreputationpress.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in because she's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could anyway. Seana, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
Oh, I'm so great, and thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we are all going to be beneficiaries of the knowledge and the wisdom that you're going to be able to impart on us today during this interview, but also within the confines of the book. Now, I know we have so much information to cover, but let's hold off slightly before jumping into the book. Start by articulating to our listening audience a little bit more about yourself, please.
Okay. So my name is Seana, like you said, and I have been, first and foremost, a public school teacher, early childhood education public school teacher for the last 20 years. This is my 20th year. But as the New Englander that you also said I am, which I'm also so proud of, I taught for 16 years in Massachusetts, and then more recently, for the last 4 years, I've been teaching here in Brooklyn, New York City. But I love being a teacher. I believe in the power of education, and I'm always around little kids. So I come up against different situations where I really want to teach them. And sometimes when I'm in a public classroom and conversations like spirituality come up, I'm not able to teach them as much as I'd like to. So therefore, that led me in different directions. Aside from being a teacher, I'm also a mom. And thank God I have my beautiful daughter, Cassie, who lives here in New York City. And I also am a grandmother with my beautiful grandson, Ali, Sky. But most importantly, I am the mother of my beautiful son, Skylar, who is now in heaven. And unfortunately, Skylar was killed when he was 17 years old. And I just, was so sad. It was so tragic. And I processed everything in my own way, but it really opened me up to all of my students in class and how often they talked about death and the passing away of someone that they love so much. And they had really not a lot of idea of what happened to their loved one, except for a great amount of sadness. Mm-hmm. So with everything combined, that pushed me forward into writing my book.
Fantastic. Seana, so much to unpack there. First and foremost, thank you for the effort and the job that you do, really helping shape and mold the minds of future generations, because I had a very brief stint in education. I taught college for 3 years, taught fourth grade for 1 year. I absolutely loved my fourth graders. It was amazing. My significant other now, she is a high school teacher. She's been teaching for about 15 years, and we definitely can relate and attest to the importance of education. And also, how teachers never get the amount of credit that they deserve for the amount of hats that they need to wear. Because we know, yeah, you're an educator. Of course, that's the main title. But anybody that's ever been in education understands, listen, there's going to be times that you need to be an educator. There's going to be times that you need to be a friend. There's going to be times that you need to be a therapist. There's so many different hats that you need to wear and so many different things that you need to balance. And teachers never get the amount of credit that they deserve for the work that they put in, especially given this past year and how this pandemic has truly wreaked havoc across the board. So once again, thank you very much for everything that you've done. My condolences to you and, of course, your family on the loss of your son. But just from the short conversations that we've had so far, given the pre-screening call and now, your overall attitude and perception is immaculate. And it is something that is really to be commended. And I'm very, very much looking forward to the wisdom that you're able to talk to us about within this book, because I know just from hearing you speak, this must have been something that you also really put in place for yourself. And there may have been tools that you utilized really with yourself and then, of course, expressing to your students. So, Seana, without further ado, let's jump right in. Father Sky, Mother Earth, and Me. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
So, Benji, you're exactly right. A teacher does do so many more things than just teaching the academics. So my book is about a beautiful little boy named Sky, and I got his name because my son who passed, his name was Skylar. But I also have used the name Sky as sort of like my son's name, but also the connection to the sky, to the heavenly realms above. And so Skylar, or Sky walks along through the book, and on every page, it shows how he is connected to the universe and how he receives his little messages, his little hellos from heaven. So he might be sitting in the middle of the woods and notice a dragonfly has landed on his shoulder. And at the same time as he's sitting in the woods and noticing the dragonfly, interestingly enough, he's also having a thought of the person that he loves and misses so much that's in heaven. So maybe it's his mom, or maybe it's his friend. But the book shows Sky walking along, and every time he looks, he might see a heart in the sky, or a beautiful sunset, or a deer, or a rainbow. And I think these are all of the ways that we are connected to the universe. And then the animals and the birds and the sunsets, all of these beautiful things that just naturally happen in the universe, or communicate hellos from heaven. When he sees a cloud in the shape of a heart, that would remind him of the person that he misses so much. So Sky walks through nature. He walks through the earth, through Mother Earth and over Mother Earth, and just is constantly receiving all of these little messages that are really comforting to his heart, and that show him that the people that he loves are still there in spirit, and they're sending him these little hellos through the deer, through the birds, through the sunsets, so that even though he's really sad, he gets the feeling that he knows the universe is with him. He knows his loved ones are still with him. Even if he can't see them, they're only in spirit.
Absolutely.
Or they are in spirit.
Absolutely. Seana, thank you so much for articulating that. And next concept that I want to go into, I really want to talk about inspiration. Now, again, as you've stated and as I started to go into, of course, given your own dealings with loss, right, and loss of your son, this idea of being spiritual and not looking at someone as passing and moving on, and now they're no longer here, but someone that has passed and just basically almost reincarnated, and almost became reincarnated in Earth and in the different manifestations around. I'm curious as to why didn't it end there? As just something you utilized for yourself and something that you kind of constructed solely for your purposes, but you took it a step further and put it out for the public to partake in as well. Why was it important for you to do that?
It is important for me to do this work because I see so many children. I see so many people, but mostly because I'm always working with children. They have so many questions as to where do their loved ones go once they die, and they don't have a lot of comforting answers. As you stated before, Benji, when someone passes away, it is so deeply saddening. It's, soul crushing. Mm-hmm. And somehow, if we're going to carry on Earth and live the rest of our lives, in a little bit, hopefully happier, healthier, peaceful, spiritual, connected way, we have got to gain knowledge that will help us get to that point. So I gained all of this knowledge for myself in terms of reincarnation and spirituality, and really having such a great knowledge base from other spiritual leaders, knowing that Skylar is still living on through the universe and his spirit is still here with us, that I really wanted to give children and adults, but specifically with this book, children, answers to a lot of their questions, to really comfort their heart and give them concrete ways to, when they leave and they go out into the world, they leave the classroom, that they can actually do what I've done. They can look into the sky and see that hawk circling above and right away know, oh my goodness, that might be my grandma. Or they can leave school and go home, and on the way home on the bus, they hear a special song, that reminds them of their dad that has just passed on. And they can know, oh my goodness, my dad must be sending me that song. I know his spirit is alive. And I know that used to be our favorite song. And I can't believe I'm sitting here right now thinking of my dad. And also that song came on at the same exact time. That has to be a message from my dad, because he knows, he's the only one that knows that that's our favorite song. But I really wanted to pass on some concrete knowledge for my little ones to be able to understand, because they are so little. So they need these just little moments, but that are very real and very graspable for them, that they can understand.
Absolutely.
And just really find that comfort in knowing that we are all connected to the universe and their loved ones are sending them messages from heaven.
Guys, again, here on the line with Seana Coughlin, we're discussing her fantastic book, Father Sky, Mother Earth, and Me. Available for purchase through Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble. But remember, check into her personal site. Even though the book isn't available for purchase, check into her site to really gather all the resources and all of the information that Seana has to offer. And that's consciousgrief.com. Seana, what I love so much about your book and really what you're discussing is, again, we understand that death is inevitable. Nobody lives forever, right? And I'm always, it's funny because I had another author recently who had written a book around grief from losing a loved one. Now, their book wasn't a children's book. It was written for adults. But the underlying concept and theme was very similar in terms of the perception that we choose to take when we're talking about the grief of a loved one, of a lost loved one. Now, I really want to take this opportunity because even though a book that really was birthed out of something so tragic, there's been so much hope that has been able to come from it. And I'm really curious, Seana, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe highlight is the wrong word to use. But what would you say was something that surprised you in the process of writing this book that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon the journey?
Honestly, my biggest surprise is how well the book has been received by people that have read it. They have all loved it, and they've really welcomed it. And not only have they welcomed it, but they actually understand it. They agree with it, adults and children. And so I think just such a warm welcome of understanding why I've done this, what my message is, and actually agreeing with it and understanding it has been my biggest surprise, and biggest thing that I'm just really, really, really grateful for. Mm-hmm. Because when we do talk about spirituality, I know that there's so many different religions and so many different beliefs, but what I tried to do was just boil it all down to be very simple and very concrete, based on more adult, religious themes and beliefs that I have learned. So it actually worked. So that was my greatest surprise. Oh my gosh, I got such a warm welcome. And the children that I've read it to also, they're like, oh my goodness, they can't believe that they can actually do these things because they understand what I'm saying. So when they do see a sunset or a hawk or, a cardinal, they're like, there goes grandma or whatever, but they love it. And it really does work. It brings them, I can see them be so sad. But then even just for that moment to see that little smile, oh my goodness, that bird reminded me of my grandma and I know she's here with me. And for them to start to understand that, yes, whoever I love is gone. And also, yes, their spirit is still around me and the universe does connect us, is just a really magical thing that they've been able to understand and welcome. And it works. So that's the biggest thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, as we tie up this fantastic interview, we've covered so much information already, but is there anything else that we haven't yet discussed or hasn't really been disclosed that you would love to make sure our listening audience is aware of?
I just would love for everybody to understand that, with everything that I've learned, our angels are always with us. They're always protecting us and trying to shine love on them. And it's really, really hard for them to get through to us when we're stuck in our grief and we're really sad and we're sitting at home crying. It's much easier for them to send us their little hellos from heaven when we are a little bit happier, when we do have some knowledge that they are around us and we do believe in them. And that would be my biggest message. And so if I can lighten anyone's mood or their emotions, if I can lighten them a little bit so that they can get these hellos from heaven and then they can start to really believe in it themselves, that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. I completely agree, Seana. Listen, I can sit here, I can talk to Seana for hours. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to love and leave you, as my grandmother will say, and you all know what you have to do. Amazon, Barnes & Noble are the places you have to go. Father Sky, Mother Earth, and Me is the title you have to pick up, and Seana Coughlin is the author you have to thank for bringing it to your table. Let's grow, let's develop, let's educate ourselves. It starts with this fantastic book, a wonderful journey and a wonderful education for you to embark upon with your children, and an even better gift for you to get for somebody else's. Seana, this has been truly an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you so much, Benji.